Welcome to Biography Central. You are listening to Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a complete biography. Chapter 54, Shyampukur. Sri Ramakrishna entered the new premises at Shyampukur in the beginning of September 1885. The building had 2 large rooms and 2 smaller ones on the first floor. One of the bigger rooms was used as the parlor, and in the other the master lived. Of the 2 smaller ones, one was used as a sleeping room by the devotees and the other by the Holy Mother when she came there. Near the exit to the roof was a small covered-in square space where the Holy Mother stayed during the day and prepared the master's food. According to previous arrangement, Dr. Mahendra Lal Sarkar was entrusted with the treatment of the master. Long ago, during the lifetime of Mathur, he had met Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. He examined the patient carefully, prescribed for him, and asked the devotees to make a report of the patient's condition every morning. When he learned that the devotees who had brought the master to Calcutta for treatment were defraying all expenses, he offered his services free as a labor of love. But even the greatest of physicians could not quiet the anxious devotees. They became convinced of the necessity of securing able hands to prepare the master's food and to nurse him by night as well as by day. Money could not possibly solve these problems. It could be done only through the combined efforts of the Holy Mother and the young devotees. But there were great difficulties in the way. In the first place, there were no women's quarters in the house. How could the Holy Mother live there? Secondly, the young devotees were mostly students. How could they give their time regularly at night without incurring the displeasure of their guardians? Moreover, some of the devotees remembered the shyness of the Holy Mother and despaired of her coming to Shyampukur. In their extremity, they laid the proposal before the master, who only said, "Will she be able to accommodate herself here? However, explain everything to her and see if she wants to come." News was accordingly sent to the Holy Mother at Dakshineshwar. The Holy Mother, however, despite her bashfulness, had thoroughly taken to heart the master's salutary teaching about accommodating oneself to circumstances. So when she learned that for want of a competent person to cook, the master's illness might take a serious turn, she threw aside all considerations of personal comfort and volunteered to come at once to Shyampukur and undertake the task. It is marvelous how she managed to live for 3 months in that house amid such uncongenial surroundings. As there was only one bathroom in the house, she had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to take her bath and then steal into her narrow place near the roof. There she would prepare the food and send word through Gopal Sr. or Latu that it was ready, and would either take it herself to the master, or if circumstances did not permit, send it by the devotees. She took her dinner and rest at noon in that garret, and after 11 p.m., when the whole household was asleep, she came down to her bedroom to snatch a few hours' sleep after the day's hard labor. Fortified with the expectation of the master's recovery, she did her work silently and cheerfully, and few among even the regular visitors knew that she was there as the master's chief nurse. When the question of diet was settled, attention was given to the matter of night nursing. Narendra Nath took this charge upon himself and began to pass the nights at Shyampukur. Fired by his example, a few sturdy youths such as Gopal Jr., a new recruit, Kali, and Shashi lent their aid. Narendra's sacrifice for the sake of the master, his inspiring talks, and association with them made an indelible impression upon their minds, and they banished all selfishness, resolving to consecrate their lives to the noble ideal of service unto the Guru and realization of God. So long as their guardians did not know of these resolutions, no objection was raised to their attendance on Sri Ramakrishna. But when, with the aggravation of the master's illness, these boys devoted their entire attention to his service, neglecting their studies and not going home even for meals, the guardians became alarmed and had recourse to various means, fair or foul, to bring them back. But the boys, with the glorious object lesson of Narendra Nath before them, stood firm as rocks. It is interesting to note that though only 4 or 5 were attracted to this labor of love at its initial stage at Shyampukur, the number of such workers was almost quadrupled towards the last. But the devotees were still anxious. They had learned from various eminent physicians that the disease, even if there were a possibility of cure, was likely to prove obstinate. Whence would come the funds for protracted treatment? Among the householder devotees who had brought the master to Calcutta for treatment, there was not one who had means enough after maintaining his own family to undertake single-handedly the expenses of the master and his attendants. It was their faith in the superhuman personality of the master that had enabled them to shoulder this great responsibility so far. Would they have to give way before the stern reality of the world? But whenever their faith wavered, they would find in Sri Ramakrishna such unprecedented evidences of spiritual power that their misgivings would be scattered to the winds, and their hearts filled with new strength and vigor. They realized that he whom they had accepted as the goal of their life was not only a Superman, but was the Lord himself in the guise of man. They even thought that he had feigned illness in order to give them the opportunity to serve him. Then why this baseless apprehension, this anxiety for the stringency of funds? Sri Ramakrishna himself would provide the means. That this was the real working of their minds was shown by their open discussion of the matter among themselves. One thought of mortgaging his homestead, another of pawning the family ornaments, for was not this what they would do in case of domestic troubles? A third would silently curtail his daily household expenses and ungrudgingly contribute the mite thus saved to the service of the master. Inspired by such sentiments, Surendra undertook to pay the house rent, and Balaram, Ramchandra, Mahendra, Girish, and other devotees divided among themselves the total cost of the master's establishment at Shyampukur and Kasipur. The selfless enthusiasm of the devotees, centered on a common object of adoration, bound them together indissolubly, and the Ramakrishna Brotherhood, though it had its origin at Dakshineshwar, owed most of its growth to the holy associations of Shyampukur and the Kasipur garden. It was natural, therefore, that some of the devotees believed that the main reason for the master's disease was the consummation of this solidarity among the brothers. The devotees formed themselves into three groups according to the interpretation of the reasons for Sri Ramakrishna's illness. The opinion of the first group, that it was all a play, has already been given. Girish Chandraghosh, with his robust optimism, was the leader of this class. The second group thought that the master was but an instrument in the hands of the Divine Mother, who, to fulfill some mysterious purpose of her own, calculated to promote the welfare of humanity, had temporarily put him in this condition, and that perhaps he himself was unable to fathom that mystery. The third group held that the body of Sri Ramakrishna, like all other material things, was subject to the laws of nature, so it was idle to ascribe an esoteric meaning to his illness. They would take a rational view of the matter until there was some revelation to the contrary. They would do their utmost to bring about his recovery, and through sadhana would try to emulate the lofty ideals for which he stood. It was Narendra Nath who, as the spokesman of the young disciples of the master, held to the last view. Though differing from one another in this matter, all the devotees were agreed in one respect, namely, that by carrying the master's instructions into practice and winning his favor through unstinted service, they would be able to achieve the highest goal in this life. This it was that kept their regard for one another intact in spite of differences of opinion at the time and during subsequent events. We shall now record some of those wonderful manifestations of the master's spiritual power that stimulated the faith of his devotees to go on against overwhelming odds. We have seen how Dr. Mahendra Lal Sarkar took up in right earnest the task of treating the master. For the first few days he used to attend thrice a day to study the course of the disease. After the examination was over, he would spend hours with Sri Ramakrishna in various religious discourses. As a result, he soon recognized the great spirituality of the master and considered it a privilege to be in his company. One day the master began to thank him for his kindness, but he interrupted him saying, "Do you think that I spend so much time here for your sake alone? I have a personal motive in it. I derive great joy from your company. I never had the opportunity of association with you before. I was busy with other things. To be frank, I like you for your unflinching devotion to truth. But, alas, how often I find people professing one thing and doing another, which I abhor. Don't think that I'm flattering you. I am no respecter of persons. Even if my father is wrong, I tell him so to his face. I am notorious for bluntness." "Yes, I have heard that," said the master with a smile. "But though you have been coming here for a pretty long time, I have had as yet no indication of that." The doctor smiled and said, "We must both thank our stars for that. Had anything in your conduct appeared hypocritical, it would not have passed without comment." In the course of the ensuing conversation, the doctor condemned those who put limitations upon God. Sri Ramakrishna was pleased with this remark and said, "You are quite right. I cannot bear such foolish statements." He then asked a devotee to sing a song of Ram Prasad, which he explained to the doctor. The master hastened to correct an inaccuracy of the singer, saying, "No, you reverse the words. It ought to be, 'My mind sees it plainly, but the heart, alas, will not be satisfied.' The mind tries to understand God and soon realizes that it is beyond its power to comprehend the eternal reality. But the heart refuses to be convinced. It is restless to attain him." The doctor was charmed with the interpretation and exclaimed, "Quite right. The mind, like a vulgar fellow, despairs at the slightest difficulty, but the heart, undeterred, pushes on in the search for truth." While listening to the song, one or two young devotees fell in a trance. The doctor examined their pulse and said, "It appears that they have no outward consciousness." Sri Ramakrishna gently passed his hand over their chest and, uttering in their ears the name of God, brought them back to consciousness. Dr. Sarkar said to the master, "It all seems to be your handiwork." The master replied with a smile, "No, it is all due to his grace. The minds of these young men have not been scattered on wife, children, wealth, or fame, so they're easily concentrated in the name of God." The doctor incidentally remarked that it was a little learning that was dangerous, but profundity of knowledge always made one humble. To this, Sri Ramakrishna replied, "Yes, secular knowledge generally makes one dogmatic. Vanity of learning is one of the bondages of man. It is through divine grace that with so much erudition you are still free from it." Dr. Sarkar said excitedly, "Why, I know almost nothing. I don't feel any humiliation in learning from others, even from these young men, and I can even touch their feet. I also tell them," said the master, "as long as I live, I can learn from others." Then referring to the doctor, he said to the devotees, "You see his humility. That shows the real worth of the man." The doctor then took his leave for the day. Thus, gradually, Dr. Mahendra Lal became more and more attached to Sri Ramakrishna. The master was anxious to bring him to the realization of God. He caused some of his most brilliant disciples, such as Mahendra, Girish, and Narendra, to associate with him. As a result of this, the doctor saw the performance of Girish Chandra's Life of Buddha on the stage and several others of his religious plays. Delighted with Narendra Nath's conversation, he invited him one day to dinner. Shortly after, at Shyampukur, at his request, Narendra sang for him. The doctor was charmed, warmly embraced the boy, and blessed him heartily. He said to Sri Ramakrishna, "I am so glad that a boy like him has devoted himself to religion. He is a gem, and I am sure he will shine in any sphere of life." The master glanced approvingly at Narendra and said, "They say it was the fiery appeal of Advaita Goswami that induced the Lord to incarnate as Sri Gauranga at Nadia. Similarly, all this that you see, meaning his own advent, is on account of him, Narendra." 2 months passed, and the illness continued unabated. The medicine had no effect. This made the doctor anxious, and he began to lay added, sometimes exaggerated stress on the regulation of the diet. He was now taking more than a professional interest in the case. His every word and action bespoke esteem for the master, whose love, candor, and spirituality had captured his heart. The doctor's love now extended even to the devotees, who he was convinced were sincere in their devotion to their guru. But the degree of reverence they paid to him seemed to the doctor altogether disproportionate. He was opposed to paying divine honors to any man, even if he were considered an incarnation. One day, he openly expressed himself to Sri Ramakrishna to this effect, saying, "I can understand the significance of love and devotion to God, But to say that the infinite descends on earth in the form of man creates all the trouble. It is difficult to realize how he could come as the child of Yasoda, or Mary, or Sachi. It is that has spoilt everything. The master was amused and said to his devotees, "Just listen to him. It is absurd. There are, of course, foolish bigots who disturb the peace of the world by giving undue prominence to their respective ideals. But that does not alter the truth of divine incarnation." There was many a passage at arms on this point between the doctor and some of the devotees, Girish and Narendranath, for instance, and he had to admit that there was much to be said on the other side also. Thenceforth he expressed his views cautiously. But what these arguments failed to do, the master's great love and sweetness, and the frequent manifestations of spiritual power to which the doctor was an eyewitness, accomplished in a short time. His vision was thus gradually enlarged. We shall give here an incident which left an indelible impress upon his mind. It was the occasion of the Durga Puja. Surendranath Mithra, who was observing this festival at his own house, was sad because the master's illness prevented his coming. In the evening of the second day of the festival, many people, including Narendranath and Dr. Sarkar, were assembled in Sri Ramakrishna's room. Narendra was singing. Everyone was deeply affected. The master went into trance repeatedly. The clock struck 7:30, and the most auspicious moment of the day, the Sandhi, as it is called, arrived. The doctor was about to take his leave, and Sri Ramakrishna stood up to bid him goodbye, when he suddenly fell into deep samadhi. The devotees thought it to be due to the special sanctity of the hour. The doctor took his seat again to see what would happen next. About half an hour later, Sri Ramakrishna returned to normal consciousness and told his devotees what he had just experienced. He said, "I saw a luminous path open up between here and Surendra's house. Through Surendra's devotion, the mother was manifest in the image there. Her third eye was emitting a divine light. The usual series of lamps were burning before her. Surendra was sitting in the courtyard, weeping bitterly. You had better go there. You will comfort him." Accordingly, Narendranath and the other devotees went to Surendra's house to find everything in accordance with the master's vision. During this samadhi, Dr. Sarkar and another doctor who was present examined the master's heart with a stethoscope. No heartbeat could be determined, nor was there any reaction when the master's eyeball was touched with a finger. Both had to confess that science was powerless to explain it. Their weeks passed, but there was no change in the master's health. In spite of this weak condition, the master's cheerfulness continued unabated. The Kali Puja day, a favorite day with the master, was approaching. Devendra proposed to worship the mother in the master's presence. The devotees were opposed to this on the ground that the excitement would be sure to aggravate Sri Ramakrishna's illness. So Devendra abandoned the idea. But on the eve of the festival, the master said to some of the devotees, "Prepare the requisites of worship on a small scale. Tomorrow we shall have Kali Puja." This was hailed with delight. In the absence of specific directions, only the principal things were procured. The master made no further reference to the matter. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the devotees, of their own accord, brought the things to his room and arranged them near his bed. Some of them on a former occasion had seen him worship himself with flowers, etc., and expected him to do the same thing now. The master paid no attention to all these preparations. Lamps were lighted and incense burnt. Still the master remained silent. The devotees sat near him, some awaiting his orders, others meditating on the mother. Though there were 30 or more people in the room, perfect silence reigned. Among the devotees was Girish. He, like the rest, was at first surprised at the conduct of Sri Ramakrishna. But suddenly the idea struck him. Sri Ramakrishna has no need to worship the mother for his own sake. May he not worship her out of pure love? But if that be so, why doesn't he do it? Can he be providing an opportunity for his devotees to worship the Divine Mother through him? Undoubtedly. He was beside himself with joy, and taking some flowers and sandal paste offered them at Sri Ramakrishna's feet, shouting, "Glory to the Divine Mother!" A thrill passed through Sri Ramakrishna's body, and the next moment he was in deep samadhi. Mahendra followed Girish. Rakul came next. and afterwards all the devotees worshipped the master with scented flowers. The body of the master had in the meantime undergone a strange transformation. His face became luminous, and a divine smile played on it. One of his hands was raised, and the other was held in the posture of one offering boons, as is seen in the images of Kali. The Mother of the Universe was evidently manifesting through him, and the devotees were enraptured. The room was filled with joyous shouts. When the master regained consciousness, the sweets and fruits gathered for worship were placed before him. He partook of some, and blessed the devotees that they might attain the heights of devotion and knowledge. They ate the holy prasad and spent the greater part of the night in songs to the Divine Mother. They had seen the Master that evening in an altogether new light and were filled with joy. They realized that he would be ever with them, protecting them from all dangers and tribulations. Nestled in his arms, they would be safe forever. Though the Master's illness was daily growing more serious, people were coming to him in greater numbers to satisfy their spiritual yearnings. It was here that many a householder devotee like Harish Chandra Mustafi and boys like Sharda, Prasanna Mithra, and Manindranath Gupta first met the Master. Sri Ramakrishna set himself to guide these newcomers according to their particular temperaments. Disregarding his illness, he gave them practical directions on spirituality. One day, after showing the correct posture for meditation on the personal aspect of God, he tried to show the one needed for his impersonal aspect also. But in doing so, he became merged in samadhi. After a while, he forcibly dragged his mind to a lower plane and said, "I couldn't show you anymore." As soon as I sit in that posture, the mind is acted upon by the suggestion and becomes absorbed in samadhi. There's a rush of blood also towards the throat, which is painful. The doctor has therefore repeatedly warned me against samadhi. The young man who was the recipient of this instruction was sorry and said, "Sir, I didn't want to see you do all this." "True," the master replied, "but I can't help giving you a little practical training." A great Christian devotee named Prabhadale Mishra, belonging to the Quaker sect, met the master at Shyampukur on October 31st in 1885. He was an inhabitant of northern India, aged about 35, and lived the life of a monk. His two brothers had died at the same moment, on the very day that was set for the marriage of one of them. This so shocked Prabhadale that he renounced the world then and there. He used to wear an ochre loincloth under his English dress. The following is part of his conversation with the Master. Prabhadale is the Lord who shines through every creature. Sri Ramakrishna, slowly to Narendra Jr., the Lord is one, but he is called by 1,000 names. Prabhadale, Jesus is not simply the son of Mary. He is God himself, addressing the devotees. Now Sri Ramakrishna, is what you see him. Again, at another time he is God himself. You do not recognize him fully. I had a vision of him long ago, and now I see him physically. I saw a garden, and he was there, sitting on an elevated seat. There was another seated on the floor, but he was not so advanced. Sri Ramakrishna, do you have any visions? Prabhadale, even while I was at home, I used to see a light. Afterwards I saw Jesus. I have no words to describe his beauty. Compared with it, the beauty of a woman is nothing. Sri Ramakrishna went to the veranda, whence he shortly returned saying, I saw him, Mishra, standing in a heroic posture. Then he went again into ecstasy, shook hands with Prabhadale smiling, and said, Your desire will be fulfilled. Prabhadale, with folded palms from that day, I surrendered everything to you, my body, mind, and soul. Sri Ramakrishna smiled and asked the devotees to entertain Prabhadale. Meanwhile, Dr. Sarkar had come. At the sight of him, the master fell into samadhi. While returning to consciousness, he said, I am not senseless. Doctor, no, you are not. Then the master sang a song about the intoxicating bliss of God, which moved the doctor greatly. Sri Ramakrishna again rose to an exalted mood and put his legs on Dr. Sarkar's lap. When he returned to normal, he drew his legs away. Then he said to the doctor, Really, that remark of yours the other day was wonderful. Am I not resting on her arms? And whom else shall I ask about my illness? If I have to pray at all, I must pray to her." As he said this, his eyes were filled with tears. He said to the doctor, "You are very pure. Otherwise, I could not have touched you." Then, quoting a song, "He is a sadhu who tastes the bliss of God. Was in sense pleasures. Who cares for them?" He said, "I shall become normal when I hear that song. Get drunk, my mind, with the bliss of God." Narendra, who was in another room, was called in to sing it. While at Shyampukur, Sri Ramakrishna one day had a vision of his subtle body emerging from the gross sheath and moving about the room. It had a number of sores on the back. He was puzzled by the sight, but it was made clear to him that the touch of profane people had caused them. They themselves had been purified, but their sins had been visited on him. The master told his devotees more than once at Dakshineshwar that he would cheerfully be born 1,000,000 times for the sake of mankind. When he described this vision to his devotees, they were deeply touched at his unbounded love and compassion, and they resolved to keep watch so that no outsiders might touch him. Some of the devotees who remembered their past follies vowed not to touch the master as long as he was ill. Narendra and some others observed that the master's vision was in conformity with the doctrine of vicarious atonement advocated in certain paths like Christianity and Vaishnavism. About this attempt to shut out the strangers from the master's presence, Girish Chandra said, "You may try, but you won't succeed, for he has been born for this purpose." As a matter of fact, it was found that though it was possible to exclude utter strangers, the attendants could not keep out newcomers who were known to the devotees. Therefore, a rule was laid down not to admit anybody into the master's presence without proper introduction, and these were strictly forbidden to touch his feet. But there were notable exceptions in cases where the devotion of the newcomer overcame all restrictions. One day, an amusing incident happened. An actress of the theater of which Girish was the manager had once seen the master during the representation of Chaitanya Leela. The master had praised her skill and even allowed her to salute him by touching his feet. From that day, she regarded him as a god and sought an opportunity to meet him again. Hearing of his illness, she became impatient to see him and entreated Kalipada Ghosh to help her. Kalipada knew that this would not be allowed, so together they planned to hoodwink the attendants. One evening, he brought her to the Shyampukur house in the guise of a young man in European dress, whom he introduced to the attendants of the master as his friend. The rest was easy. When they came to Sri Ramakrishna, they disclosed the whole plot to him. He enjoyed the fun and admired her cleverness. Pleased with her faith and devotion, he gave her some valuable advice on faith in God. Then she took her departure after touching the master's feet with her head. The disciples were much discomfited when they learned from the master of the trick that had been played upon them. But in view of Sri Ramakrishna's enjoyment of the situation, they had to forego reproaching Kalipada. While companionship with Sri Ramakrishna and wholehearted service to him gave the devotees increased faith and devotion, they were unconsciously walking on a very dangerous road. Many of them began to set more value upon a sentimental display than upon renunciation and self-restraint. They did not understand that emotional outbursts without these were powerless in their battle with the flesh. There is some excuse for this error. In the first place, the mind naturally seeks the line of least resistance, trying to make a compromise between God and the world, between renunciation and enjoyment. The majority of people overlook the contradictory nature of the two and are satisfied with a partial progress in spirituality. Accordingly, with every newcomer, Sri Ramakrishna first of all took care to ascertain if he entertained this comfortable idea of religion. Where such proved to be the case, the highest ideal of renunciation would never be placed before the aspirant. Only as much would be given as could be grasped. Hence instruction was individual, varying according to the grade of the aspirant. The advice to his young disciples destined for a life of sannyasa was different from those given to his householder devotees. It was for this reason that in general instructions we find him saying, "The path of devotion as chalked out by Narada, consisting of the chanting of the Lord's name and so forth, is the only way in this Kali Yuga." But very few caught the significance of these words, which was that these methods would bring about in the worldly man a gradual renunciation of lower desires. Another cause of the devotees' error seems to be their lack of comprehension of the significance of Sri Ramakrishna's life. His marvelous austerities and self-abnegations had been performed long before their advent, and they failed to see the adamantine foundations of his extraordinary manifestations of emotion. Matters came to a head when Girish Chandra Ghosh, who believed the Master to be an incarnation of God, publicly announced his conviction. His was in every respect an exceptional case. But with the zeal of a convert, he forgot that he was unique, and his invitation to everyone to accept his ideal and follow in his footsteps proved to be disastrous. With none of Girish's sincerity, there were some who went about declaring that they had given Sri Ramakrishna the power of attorney for themselves, and had therefore no need of spiritual discipline. The views of Girish found a ready response in Ramchandra, who, as we have seen, was a Vaishnava and also believed that Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Krishna, and Sri Gauranga were identical. Not only did he now proclaim Sri Ramakrishna as the prophet of the age, but he also busied himself with tracing the identity of the Master's devotees with those of other incarnations. And those who developed the greatest symptoms of sentimentality were in his estimation worthy of the highest place. But the matter reached its climax when Vijay Krishna Goswami came from Dhaka to see the Master and declared that while he was meditating there in his room, Sri Ramakrishna had appeared before him in flesh and blood, and that he had actually been able to feel him. The sentimentality of the devotees was at its highest. Some half a dozen of them would fall into partial trances accompanied by contortions of the body whenever there was any exciting cause, such as devotional music. Many of them practically gave up the exercise of their common sense and reasoning faculty, and waited in suspense for some miraculous manifestation of Sri Ramakrishna's divine power. But among the Master's devotees, there was one who was quick enough to foresee the baneful effect of such meaningless emotion. Narendra Nath saw the danger and set himself to stem the tide. He first addressed himself to the young men, who he knew would understand him best. He argued with them in this wise, that a fusion of sentiment which, while rousing a momentary feeling of devotion, fails to make a lasting impress on the mind, cannot strengthen a man to grapple with the temptations of the world, is neither deep nor of any permanent value in the domain of religion. It may produce physiological changes, making tears flow or hair stand on end, or it may partially deprive one of consciousness for the time being, but I am fully persuaded that it is the result of mere nervous excitation. If one cannot check it through the exercise of willpower, one should eat nutritious food and seek the help of a physician. Moreover, people feign a good deal. The higher and stronger the bounds of self-control, the deeper will be the feelings. Few at first placed credence in Narendra Nath's words, but the truth percolated little by little. It was discovered that these effusions were in some cases feigned and the result of rehearsals at home. When a devotee was found going repeatedly into trances, Narendra Nath reasoned with him and advised him to practice self-control and to take nourishing food. Or, when Narendra was convinced that a man was merely simulating those states, he would ridicule him and thus try to correct his hysterical tendency. He also set before the young men positive ideals, and by means of songs and fiery discourses kindled in their hearts the flame of devotion and renunciation. More frequently, he would keep them spellbound with tales of the soul-stirring incidents of Sri Ramakrishna's sadhana and interpreting his greatness in that light. Quoting from the Imitation of Christ, he would spur them on to emulate the glorious traits of the Master's character. For a servant, he said, who really loved his Master must mold his life after him. This he held up before all as the true criterion their love for Sri Ramakrishna. Again, he would remind them of the Master's teaching, keep the knowledge of Advaita in your pocket, and then act as you like in the world. He explained to them that Sri Ramakrishna's emotions were based on that knowledge, and it was that knowledge which they should endeavor to acquire. While Narendra Nath was thus engaged in shaping the character of Sri Ramakrishna's children, the condition of the Master was gradually going from bad to worse. When treatment proved ineffectual, Dr. Sarkar advised a change to some garden house outside the city. A vigorous search was made, and the spacious garden house of Gopal Chandra Ghosh at Kasipur was hired for 80 rupees a month. In the afternoon of the 11th of December, 1885, Sri Ramakrishna was moved to the new premises which he liked very much. I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.